Today is Thursday, October 3rd. We'll tell you about a newly released court filing that lays out the evidence against former President Trump in the election interference case against him, what prosecutors are saying now, and how he's responding. Also, an update from hurricane-ravaged North Carolina, where President Biden visited and is now sending active duty troops to help. Plus, what to know about a record-setting heatwave, the largest venture capital deal of all time, and a multi-billion-dollar effort to renovate movie theaters near you. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. A key filing in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump has now been made public. It's the most comprehensive look at the evidence federal prosecutors have gathered in this case. Remember, this is the federal criminal case that accuses Trump of trying to undo the results of the 2020 presidential election. The newly released court documents from the special counsel come after the Supreme Court's ruling earlier this year that said presidents have legal immunity for official acts. So now prosecutors are arguing that Trump's actions were private in nature, unofficial acts of a desperate losing candidate, and don't count as official presidential responsibilities. The filing says Trump and his aides knowingly pushed false claims of voter fraud and, quote, resorted to crimes as Trump tried to cling to power, and that he planned to challenge the election results far in advance of Election Day in 2020. It says when Trump was told a lawyer would not be able to prove the election fraud allegations in court, Trump allegedly replied, quote, the details don't matter. The filing also describes Trump trying to persuade state officials to throw the election his way and to pressure then Vice President Mike Pence to reject the votes on January 6, 2021, which Pence refused to do. And when he was told Pence had been rushed to a secure location to get away from a violent mob of Trump supporters at the U.S. Capitol, Trump allegedly told an aide, quote, so what? Former President Trump has denied any wrongdoing, though, and he's pleaded not guilty to these charges. He's called the whole case partisan and a witch hunt. Trump and his lawyers are now also arguing it was unfair for the documents to be released to the public so close to Election Day, that typically the DOJ holds off on any major actions that could sway voters. Either way, the judge in this case will now go line by line through the 165-page brief and decide if the evidence actually does fall under unofficial acts that can, in fact, be prosecuted. She's called it a uniquely challenging task. That said, any decision she ultimately makes will likely be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, so don't expect this to be resolved anytime soon. President Biden has ordered the Pentagon to deploy up to 1,000 active-duty troops to areas devastated by Hurricane Helene. They'll join the thousands of National Guard members already working on relief efforts in the Southeast. The Army troops are meant to speed up delivery of life-saving supplies of food, water, and medicine to isolated communities in North Carolina, who have been cut off due to collapsed roads, landslides, sinkholes, and more. The order came after Biden visited North and South Carolina yesterday to survey the areas damaged and to meet with officials leading the rescue efforts. The death toll from the storm has now reached 180 and rising. Hundreds of people are still unaccounted for. Already, Helene is the deadliest hurricane to hit the mainland U.S. since Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. Today, President Biden plans to visit impacted communities in Georgia and Florida. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Georgia yesterday, where she thanked local officials and toured the damage. She said federal personnel are going door to door to make sure immediate needs are met and says the government will be there for the long haul. FEMA says nearly 2 million ready-to-eat meals and more than 1 million liters of water have been sent to the hardest-hit areas. Former President Donald Trump also visited Georgia earlier this week, and his campaign set up a GoFundMe page that has raised over $2 million for victims of the storm. Tonight marks 1 week since Hurricane Helene first made landfall in Florida and went on to wreak havoc across 6 states. An unusual October heat wave is impacting parts of the western U.S. More than 40 million people in portions of California, Arizona, and Nevada are under heat alerts. And the heat is bringing back wildfire concerns, even for regions that have already dealt with several large blazes during the summer. This week, the temperatures have even set records. Palm Springs, California, hit a high of 117 degrees this week, matching the highest temperature ever recorded in the U.S. during the month of October. Phoenix, Arizona is also still dealing with intense heat and broke a record high for the city for any October day at 113 degrees. Las Vegas fell just short of a record, and at 94 degrees, San Francisco just had its hottest day of the year so far. Many of the heat alerts are expected to last at least through today, if not beyond. A leftover American bomb from World War II exploded at a Japanese airport, damaging the runway and shutting down flights. No injuries were reported, but the 500-pound bomb created a crater more than 20 feet wide and forced the cancellation of 80 flights at an airport in southwest Japan. Japan still has thousands of unexploded bombs buried around the country that were dropped by American planes during World War II, and this airport is on the site of an old Navy base. Many bombs fell without detonating. Even though other unexploded American bombs have been found nearby in the past, Japanese officials said there's no risk of another explosion. All right, we have more news for you still ahead. But first, this episode of The Newsworthy is brought to you by Wildgrain. This fall, treat yourself and your loved ones to fresh, bake-from-frozen sourdough breads, fresh pastas, and artisanal pastries, as well as limited-time seasonal items like apple cider donuts from Wildgrain. Wildgrain's boxes are fully customizable. You've got the classic variety box, then they recently launched a new gluten-free box and a plant-based box that is 100% vegan. As soon as I started pulling items out of our Wildgrain box, my husband started oohing and aahing with excitement. I'm talking slow-fermented olive oil ciabatta, large flaky croissants, fresh fettuccine, giant chocolate chunk cookies, and more. And we seriously impressed our guests the other day by putting out this beautiful, delicious loaf of bread. Yes, they had no idea how easy it was for me. Get this, all items baked from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup. It's amazing. Are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? For a limited time, Wildgrain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/newsworthy to start your subscription. That's wildgrain.com/newsworthy, or you can use the promo code newsworthy at checkout. Okay, now back to the news. In a move that shows the massive amount of money being invested in artificial intelligence right now, the maker of ChatGPT just closed what's being called the biggest venture capital deal of all time. OpenAI raised $6.6 billion, sending its total valuation skyrocketing to $157 billion. That's almost double what it was worth just less than a year ago. The funding round was led by VC firm Thrive Capital, but also included major companies like Microsoft, NVIDIA, and SoftBank. Even though investments and valuations are at record levels, it's still incredibly expensive to run generative AI companies. Some estimates say OpenAI burns through $700,000 a day. The new investment comes shortly after CEO Sam Altman signaled the company would shift from nonprofit to for-profit status. In fact, reports say investors will be allowed to get their money back if the company doesn't move to a for-profit structure within 2 years. Though 3 of OpenAI's top executives left the company last month, reports suggest there have been internal clashes over safety and the structure of the company. One of the world's leading car companies is making a big bet on air taxis. Toyota said it's investing $500 million in Joby Aviation, a California company developing air taxis that take off and land vertically. The electric air taxis look kind of like mini helicopters with 6 drone-like rotating propellers. They can carry 4 passengers plus a pilot, though Joby is also investing in autonomous piloting technology. The cash injection comes on top of nearly $400 million Toyota invested already back in 2020, bringing the total investment close to $1 billion and giving Toyota a 20% stake in Joby. Some of the money will help Joby fund a complex and time-consuming certification process through the FAA so that it will legally be allowed to fly people around. The ultimate goal is to have Joby aircrafts flying passengers above crowded cities. Users will be able to hail the taxis through an app similar to Uber or Lyft. But there's no specific timeline on when that will actually happen. Well, this would be an unnerving sight. Some Bank of America customers saw their accounts suddenly go to $0 yesterday. Others couldn't access their accounts or couldn't transfer money or pay bills. And the reason? An outage that affected tens of thousands of customers across the country. By late afternoon, Bank of America told news outlets that it had largely resolved the issues. But some customers posted to social media that they should be compensated for the stressful experience. Bank of America has not given a cause for the problems, but the outage comes on the heels of a Verizon network failure that left thousands of people without cell service earlier this week. It's a record-setting baseball worth around $1.5 million, and now there's a fight over who it actually belongs to. We're talking about the ball that MLB star Shohei Ohtani knocked out of the park for his 50th home run. It was the moment Ohtani became the first player in Major League history to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in a single season. Well, there was a pretty chaotic scramble in the stands where it landed, but one fan went home with it and pretty quickly put it up for auction. But then a different fan said he was assaulted in the scramble in the stands and filed a lawsuit last week to claim ownership of the ball. And now a second fan is making a similar claim in another lawsuit, saying he had the ball in his hand before someone hit him on the arm. A judge will now have to work out all the claims with a hearing set for next week. As for Ohtani himself, his Los Angeles Dodgers locked up the top seed in the National League for the playoffs. The wild card round of games started this week. So stay tuned for which team will make it to the World Series later this month. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, a quick break for our sponsor. I admit it, I love pumpkin spice lattes along with beautiful, colorful leaves in the fall. You know what else I love this season? Cozy cashmere sweaters from Quince, starting at just $50. And here's the best part. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, Quince is able to pass the savings on to us. And that's true for my other favorite items from Quince, like the organic cotton knit blazer I have. It's super comfortable, yet sophisticated. I can throw it on over my washable silk tank from Quince or another top with jeans and heels and feel like my best self. And it's perfect for this time of year as we transition from summer to fall and the always changing weather calls for layers. I also love that Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And of course, premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/newsworthy for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/newsworthy to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/newsworthy. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. The 8 biggest movie theater chains in the U.S. and Canada are planning major makeovers. We're talking about upgrades that will cost a total of more than $2.2 billion. Theater chains like AMC, Regal Cinemas, and more are investing in new equipment and amenities to try to lure customers back to the movies and keep them happy. Representatives for the theaters say more comfortable seats, better food options, and the latest in sound and projection technology are just some of the ways they can make the movie-going experience more enjoyable. In the end, they say they'll update 21,000 screens over the next 3 years. And that covers nearly 70% of the North American box office. Some theaters are even expanding into other activity options on site, like pickleball, bowling, or zip lines. These renovations come at a time when the theater industry is hurting. The pandemic forced everyone to avoid public spaces, which was followed by a writers' and actors' strike that shut down Hollywood for months. And that's on top of movies hitting streaming services faster than ever. Even now, the industry hasn't totally rebounded. The summer box office was down 13% compared to last year. That said, theater owners are optimistic. They say this investment shows their confidence in the future of movie theaters. All right, thank you so much for listening today and making us part of your daily routines. We are so grateful you spent your time with us. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.